What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh video. So over a week ago, we had gotten some pretty exciting news in regards to some new news in regards to one of the two new mangas that are being released in the month of April, and the manga that got some exciting news was for the Yu-Gi-Oh card lore manga, which now has an official name, Yu-Gi-Oh OCG Stories. I'm very excited to be going over this new news as we now have the release date for this manga series. We know who's going to be the writer for this manga, who's going to be doing the art for it, and the planning support for this manga series. So we got quite a bit to talk about, so without further ado, let's jump right into it. So here is the new news that we got in regards to Yu-Gi-Oh! OCG Stories. Don't let your headcanon be dreams. A new story about the highly popular Sky Striker Ace from the OCG will be told in manga form. It will be published in the special June issue of V-Jump magazine that releases on April 21st, 2022 in Japan. For us, it would be April 20th, which actually is when this video will be coming out, as I'm recording this on the day that OCG Stories should be out. Now, I want to inform you guys, we have not gotten the raws yet of this manga series, so don't get too excited. More than likely, I would expect us to get the raws tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. So it's pretty exciting that technically OCG Stories is out now. It's just we gotta wait for the raws to actually come out. But that's not all. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we now know who's going to be doing the writing, the art, and the planning support. So let's go over that. So the person that's going to be doing the writing for this manga is Shin Yoshida, which if you guys have been a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh for a while, then this name should sound very familiar to you, as this man was what I would consider a workaholic when it came to Yu-Gi-Oh. He did a lot for the Studio Gallup's animes. I mean, big examples of what he did was that he did the second half of the 5D story, the whole thing with, Aporia and Zone and that whole storyline. He did all of that. He did the entirety of Zexal. He did the entirety of Reigns. He did the entirety of the story of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal and Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 manga. So this man has done a lot. The last piece of media that he had worked on was the Yu-Gi-Oh! Reigns anime. So it's been a minute since we've seen him really do anything. It's been over a year at this point. So it's pretty interesting to see him back into doing stuff for Yu-Gi-Oh! The person that's going to be doing the art for the manga is Nahito Mayoshi, which I believe also did the art for the Zexal and Arc 5 manga. So these two have worked together before. So the fact that we have two people that have worked on mangas before, it's a really good sign for this manga series, in my opinion. And I'm just going to say this, I'm very excited for this manga even more, because this is going to be a beautiful manga series. I mean, this man can draw. In fact, he even drew Sky Striker Ace Ray when this announcement got released as well. So we kind of get an idea of how the art style is going to look for OCG Stories. And boy, oh boy, it makes me excited for it, because I know this manga series is going to look very beautiful. And then the planning support is being done by Konami Digital Entertainment, which I'm not surprised about that whatsoever. It would make sense that they would be involved with this manga. So not really too much to talk about in regards to the planning support. But yeah, that's all of the new announcements that we got for this new Yu-Gi-Oh! OCG Stories manga. So yeah, very interesting news to say the least. Obviously, like I said, the manga is now out now. We're just gonna have to wait on the raws and potential translation. Hopefully, we get some translations for this OCG Stories manga, because just like the other mangas, we don't have a confirmation if something like Viz Media is doing it or not. Although, I will say this is probably the best chance that we do got in regards to a manga series getting something like Viz Media to actually translate this manga series, because I feel like this one could be translated and it would make sense, because I look at the Go Rush manga, the Sevens manga, and the Rush Duel LP manga, since they do focus on the Rush Duel game, and since Rush Duels aren't in the TCG besides the video game, it doesn't really make sense to release those mangas to the Western audience. Maybe Sevens and Go Rush, I can see a little bit of an argument once the animes come out, but I wouldn't try to push your luck for that. And OCG Structures, I've seen a lot of people ask whether or not TCG Structures is going to come out. It's never going to happen. The format is actually different than the TCG, so it's technically impossible to do it, or, you can't just call it TCG Structures because it's actually invalid information, because the OCG format is completely different from the TCG format, so you can't just replace the names and just make it work. You just cannot do it. So, Yu-Gi-Oh! OCG Structures didn't make any sense, though. I will say this manga has the most potential for it because, when it comes to card lore, it should be the exact same from the OCG and TCG version. You can call this Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG Stories, and it can actually work, unlike Yu-Gi-Oh! OCG Structures. So maybe we'll be lucky enough to get that, but I wouldn't push it too much. But that's some things to expect on it, and I already gave my thoughts on Masayoshi. Great artist. I'm very excited to see his art for the remaining parts of OCG Stories and whatever other stories that we do get for this new manga series. I'm just very excited to see his artwork once again back in action in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga series. But there is one person that we have to discuss when it comes to OCG Stories, and that is Shin Yoshida. Listen, I understand that a lot of people do not like the fact that Shin Yoshida is the one that's doing the manga series. We know he is infamous for being a bad girl writer, and the fact that he is doing this manga series where the first chapter is focused on the lore where the main protagonist in Sky Striker Ace Ray and the rival in Sky Striker Ace Rose, they're both girl characters. And the fact that he's so infamous for that, the fact that he is going to be the one writing this manga series, I understand the concern for it, though I will say that, putting all the blame on him for bad girl characters is stupid. People need to stop doing that. An example that I can say of this, look at Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 in the anime. Don't discuss the manga, I know that's a different thing. But in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 anime, remember, he didn't do anything with the Arc 5 anime. That was the only piece of Yu-Gi-Oh! Media that he never worked on. And guess what? Zuzu, even though she had a lot of potential, she wasn't done very well. Ruri, Rin, they weren't done very well. Like, the girl characters in that series, besides maybe Serena, I thought she was pretty solid. Besides her, I don't think they really did any of the girl characters that well. I thought they were either, not that great, or they were just fine. Like, they weren't, impressive, in my opinion. So we shouldn't give him all the crap for this, because I think it was just a Gallup thing in general. But the one thing I will say with Shin Yoshida being the writer is that of two things. A, he can write good stories. Like, I understand he hasn't been good with girl characters, but that doesn't take away from stories that he's done. In fact, in my opinion, I think he's written one of the best arcs that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has ever seen in the Barry and Onslaught art from Zexal. Like, we know that he's a very talented writer, and the fact that we're going to be able to see some of that aspect into this, I'm very fascinated to see, how he's able to essentially portray the card lores of these different archetypes. And the second thing is that he's had over a year at this point to improve as a writer. He just wasn't sitting at his desk doing nothing. He was trying to improve as a writer. And when you are in any profession, the one thing that you should do when you have a break off of anything when it comes to work-related stuff, the one thing that you should focus on is improving on your weaknesses. And Shin Yoshida's weakness, and he's even said it out loud in a Zexal panel, I believe, is that he cannot write girl characters. So what does that mean in this year gap that he had? He should try to improve on writing girl characters. And I think this is the chance for him to show that, I have not been the best girl writer, but in this year, I have been able to improve on writing girl characters. So this is his chance to show that off. And in fact, it might actually be true that he's been able to improve on his writing, because apparently people were able to get early access to this OCG Stories manga. I don't know if this is true or not, but based off of what people in Japan are saying, is that this manga series is very faithful to the card lore, and that it was a fantastic first chapter for OCG Stories. And if that is true, that indicates to me that Shin Yoshida was able to not only write this lore perfectly to represent what the Sky Striker lore is, but because of that, he's able to write Rei and Rose the way that they should be in this manga series, which makes me very excited for this manga series, and makes me very confident that Shin Yoshida can do this manga series and that he has improved as a writer. But again, we're gonna have to wait and see for translations and stuff, and just getting the raws in general before we can even say that, this is true or not. We're gonna have to wait and see on that. But based off of that information that we know in regards to people getting early access to it, or potentially, like I said earlier, it wasn't confirmed or anything like that, or at least I haven't been able to confirm it because I haven't been able to find any post in regards to it. But if this is true, then, I have confidence that Shin Yoshida can write this manga series and any future chapters that has a main focus in card lore with female characters like Dogmatica, for example. I feel more confident in his writing ability than I probably would have had, 2 years ago. But again, we're gonna have to wait and see on that once we actually get the raws and the raws do get translated. But with that all being said, I think that's all the thoughts that I have in regards to the Yu-Gi-Oh! OCG Stories manga. But there is one other thing that I need to discuss before we end off this video. And the thing that we need to discuss is in regards to Yu-Gi-Oh! OCG Structures. Questions have been going about ever since OCG Stories got its official name and everything. The question that has been asked so many times at this point is OCG Stories replacing OCG Structures, which would mean that OCG Structures is coming to an end. I mean, it looks like it was going to be the case. I mean, you had the Go Rush manga that replaced the Sevens manga. It would make sense for this manga to do the same thing, and the names are very similar. So I'm not surprised that this question was thrown around a whole lot. In fact, I kind of believed it a little bit because it just made sense. I mean, OCG Structures was around for 34 chapters, which is still shorter than the typical Yu-Gi-Oh! Mangas, with the shortest one being the Arc 5 manga. Well, now the Sevens manga, but before that, you had the Arc 5 manga, which was 45 chapters. So, we didn't really know for sure, but it is with great pleasure for me to inform you guys that OCG Structures is not being replaced by OCG Stories. We did get confirmation that Chapter 35 is out for OCG Structures, which I feel like that kind of deserves its own video. I'm not going to discuss it because I know some people might want to talk about that, but I'm going to wait to do that on a separate video potentially because, that there was some pretty big things that was announced with Chapter 35, but that deserves its own video. I don't want to discuss it in this video for spoiler reasons. But also, by the way, another thing I want to bring up as well is that although OCG Stories is not replacing OCG Structures, I do believe that OCG Stories did replace a manga series. I believe that it replaced the Yu-Gi-Oh! 7 spin-off manga that ended not that long ago. Yu-Gi-Oh! 7's My Academic Laboratory, I think it was what it's called, the Yu-Gi-Oh! 7's Chibi manga that was out. That's the manga series that I think this series is replacing. So I just wanted to kind of get that out to you guys. I've seen this question pop up so many times, and that's why I'm doing this video so late. I knew that this chapter was coming out today, but I wanted to wait on the confirmation on OCG Structures because of how big this question was. But it's like I said, OCG Structures is not ending. So for anyone that was worried that it was ending, you don't have to worry anymore. We're going to be having OCG Structures and OCG Stories running at the same time, which is very cool for the sole reason that now we have two pieces of Yu-Gi-Oh media that are focused on the OCG and TCG format. I know OCG Stories is a little different because it doesn't actually focus on the card game, but because the card lore is based off of the cards in the OCG and the TCG game, I do feel like it still counts. So now we have two pieces of media that is focused on the main game and three pieces of media, those three medias being, you know, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush anime and manga, and the Rush Duel LP manga that is focused on Rush Duels, which I am completely fine with that. You know, Rush Duel's getting, you know, one more piece of media than the original format. I think is completely fair. You know, Rush Duels are still the newer product and they still want to promote that as much as possible. So it makes sense that it has three pieces of media compared to the main games too. And honestly, I think it's just better because I just thought it was so stupid that we had four pieces of media that was focused on Rush Duels and one piece of media that was focused on the main game. The fact that we have a 2-3 balance, I am completely down with that. I have no issue with that whatsoever. But with that being said, that's all I really needed to discuss. You know, I just thought it would be important to you guys to inform you that OCG Structures is not ending. OCG Stories is not replacing it. So with all of that out of the way, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your guys' thoughts on the news in regards to Yu-Gi-Oh! OCG Stories. Does this make you excited for this manga series, or do you have no interest in this manga whatsoever? Let me know your guys' thoughts on the people that are working on the manga series. Are you happy about the people that are working on the series, or do you think that they shouldn't chose certain people to work on this manga series? You know, obviously more specifically Shin Yoshida. And let me know your guys' thoughts about the whole thing with OCG Structures not ending. Are you happy that it's not ending, or do you think that this was the time to end the OCG Structures manga? We'll love to know all your guys' thoughts on these topics down below. But with that being said, that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, guys, take care and have yourselves a great rest of your day. まるで蜃気楼手を伸ばして蜃気楼真っ白に染まる